your experience as a substitute teacher versus as a hired teacher. Uh, they're curious about that. I'm also curious about that, to be honest.
Well, I can address that. I had while I was in grad school, after my bachelor's, I coached and substitute taught in my where I graduated my high school, and I subbed for everything from kindergarten to senior year. And there were actually a couple jobs that came up, but because I wasn't certified, I couldn't apply for those jobs. But they more or less told me, we would have loved to have hired you, Mike. So maybe you better go back and get your education credits. But one of the things I can say is that substitute teaching is certainly challenging. I was blessed because I was in an environment where I knew some of the teachers that I was subbing for were also my former teachers, and I subbed enough times that I eventually had uh, children of some of my classmates. So if I had kind of an obstreperous kid, who wasn't cooperating, I could say, your dad and I went to school many years ago. And that was kind of an interesting way. But I wouldn't change a thing. I had some difficult experiences as a sub, but I most enjoyed the opportunities when the teacher gave me something to do rather than just babysit. So I had an opportunity to teach some English, and some of the teachers that knew that that was my major, they would try to request me because I lived nearby and I was kind of a dependable dude. The principal in the morning would bypass the certified people because they might go to another school where they were paid more or they were unreliable. So I worked as a sub almost full time. I could have a job every day. I never taught in another school, but the challenges, Cass, are the kids do tend to think it's a free for all field day. But I think I formulated some of my people skills there, and I had ultimately very few wicked, terrible experiences, and probably, ironically enough, my most challenging assignments were in the elementary wing. When I had second or third grade, those were difficult times, but yet it gave me a picture of the whole school system scenario, and that was helpful. But once you're in a full-time job where you're not bouncing around and teaching math or chemistry or English or whatever, it certainly was much more comforting. But I tell you, I got a great perspective on the whole education scenario by being a sub. And I'll tell you one last thing. One of the skills that I gained from all of this is that a lot of the people that I subbed for left me, I'll be blunt, absolute crap for lesson plans. They were notorious, some of them, that would leave you almost nothing. So I learned to be proactive. I learned to teach on the fly. I learned to bring some lessons along with me to apply when I knew that Mr. Smith was going to leave me zilch. And so there were some benefits from it at the time. It was painful, but in retrospect, I think I learned a lot from those times. So anybody who comes to sub for me, and I'm not blowing my own horn, but anybody who subs for me will get 3 pages of single spaced notes with every possible scenario. If there's a fire drill, if there's an active shooter drill, if there's this, there's that. And I thought, I'm never going to leave a substitute in the lurch. So yeah, there was a learning process.
Thank you. I know, Julie, you also mentioned that you had experience substitute teaching. I didn't know if there was anything you wanted to add to that. And also, I just wanted to say thank you for responding to the question in chat. It's awesome of you. Thank you.
Substitute teaching, I did about a year, and I, like Mike, was kindergarten all the way through. I remember one time substituting in a music class. I don't play anything. It was actually a really fun day because I just had all the band and orchestra play me music. It was really fun. I don't know what they got out of it, maybe just practice, but I had fun. The toughest thing with subbing is that you don't have the relationships because you're all over the place. You have this day and then you move this day and you move that day. There was one period that I was a lot at this at SV Middle School, and it's so funny because one of my colleagues now, I actually was a substitute for him, and he remembered when he got the job at ME. That would be Mr. Hughes. Cast, if you know who that is. So you, unless like if you're Mike and you're in the building all the time, but if you move from building to building, because I was at SV, I was at UE, I was at Binghamton, I was high school, all of this kind of a thing, and you don't have the relationships, and the kids don't know you, and they don't know how to react to you, and it's really difficult when you don't know anybody's name, like, and they pretend that they're other kids. And so the great thing about real teaching is those relationships and that kind of thing, and you just don't get that with subs because you're not there long enough in order to foment those relationships. So that's the tough thing about subbing, is that you really just spend a lot of time chasing without the relationships that form in real teaching.
Thank you.
So I subbed the year I went to grad school, and with my Spanish certification, I got hired as a long-term sub for 4 weeks in a German class because, foreign language, their Spanish and German are so close, and there's not a whole abundance of German subs out there. So those kids are now 4 weeks behind in their German education because I got nothing. We made the most of it. So sometimes you take what you can get. But one thing we have now, it started last year before the pandemic, but now it's really taken hold in our district, are these building-based subs. I don't know if you have those in ME, but each of our buildings now has a proportionate number of subs. Like I think we have 9 in our high school of 1,800 kids who they report to the building every day, and they're going to work every day, but it helps with the relationships is where I was going with that. So we know that these teachers' classes will be covered by people who are very familiar with the day-to-day operations of the school. So if you can ever get one of those gigs, it unfortunately pays the substitute rate, but you know that you're going to work all 188 days of school. So it's something a little different and new that has been working really well for us.
Really quick, we have something similar to that. We have the SWAP program, which stands for Substitutes with a Purpose. Although I don't really like the name because it kind of insinuates the other ones don't have a purpose, but they are BU students who are in the MAT program. And so they're guaranteed 2 days of subbing a week. And then they can also come in and do their observations with us. So that does help with building relationships with the kids and getting to see them more often. So.
All right, are there any last minute quick questions? Because we're just about out of time.
I was curious about how you end up like in your field of what you teach. Like, do you apply for like a specific position? Like, I'm going to teach social study, or are there general teacher jobs? And
you have to be certified, Cass. So like I have I'm assuming that like Julie would have, a 7-12, I think social studies. I think that's what it's called. It's been so long. But like you have to be certified in your subject area. So Mike has an English certification. Julie and I have social studies certifications. In science, you actually have to be like earth science certified versus physics certified versus chemistry certified. So that's how, and on the job applications, it would actually say New York State certification in whatever field that is.
Awesome. Thank you. And thank you to everyone for coming. We
Yes,
really
thank
appreciate you
you
taking
all.
the time. It was very courteous and kind of you. And thank you to all the student attendees. I hope that you had a chance to get all of your burning questions answered. And I hope you all have a wonderful night.
Good
Thank
luck
you.
to all
Thanks,
of the
Cass.
students.
Yep,
Yeah,
thank you.
yes,
Thank
good
you
luck
all.
in the rest of your senior year. Congrats.
Thank you. Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks.
Well, that went well.
It did. We're probably gonna get cut off, but
That's
I don't understand.
We can definitely go through, like, moving forward, I don't think it would be a problem because I don't think you're setting up, if you're setting up the Zoom for the research fair, you might want to have me set up the link instead.
Yeah,
But we
I
can definitely like go through and see what's happening, because it must be like a sign-in error on your end, because like the 40-minute thing is in effect for free accounts.
Yeah,
And so
when-
it must be that you're somehow not signed in with your university account. I